Hey everybody, Dave here for the Frugal Sportsman. Today, in part 3 of our video series on how to build a Sportsman work and storage center, we're going to be showing you how to cut the dados to accept the drawers and also how to assemble the first cabinet. So stick around, you're not going to want to miss it. Okay, now that our holes are all drilled in place to accept our pocket screws, what we need to do is we need to, on the middle cabinet and on the cabinet closest to our desk, our work area, we are going to be putting drawers in the lower halves of those. So the easiest way to do that is to put a dado in. Now a dado is nothing more than a square edge groove that is cut into the plywood, and that's going to accept the bottom of our drawers. Our drawers bottoms are actually going to extend to ride in those grooves back and forth, and that way we can eliminate all kinds of hardware like a drawer slide, and these are more than adequate. I actually have them in my truck, and I'll show you what they look like right now. In the corner, this is a little workstation I built for the back of my Nissan Xterra, and these are the types of drawers that we're going to have. We're going to have oval drawers, handles built into the faces, and then in the runners will be actually the bottom of the drawer that will slide right in the dados or the grooves in the side of the plywood. Super simple. I thought I'd take a minute and show you how this smaller Kreg jig works, because not everybody has a production jig like I have, and that's not even the highest one, that's just the next step up. But all you have to do really is just clamp it, and you need to have something strong. You can either have a vice grip clamp, or which is something I recommend, and Kreg actually makes one, or you can just use a regular C-clamp like this, but it's got to be fastened down very hard. And basically you just line this up, this center line up right here with your mark on the end, and then just drill it out. Let me show you how that works. And we can take our clamp off, and there you go, you have a beautiful pocket hole. Just put your screw in there, fasten up. Put your series along however you want it. Only takes a minute or so, and you can get pretty quick with this, just this little jig here. So you don't need a bigger jig like I have, okay? Hope that helps. So before we can cut the grooves, what we need to do is we need to figure out how high we want our drawers to be. Now the inside of the drawers will all be 3.5 inches. That's made up of this 1x4, and then of course we're going to have a 1/2 inch piece of plywood that's going to be a runner that's going to be under the bottom of that. So all in all, we're looking at a height of 4.5 inches. That's going to be the size of our drawers. The faces of our drawers will be a little bit taller, so we'll be able to fit items in there a little bit taller, and the 4-inch sides will keep everything centered in the drawer. So what we need to do is we need to figure on putting together these slides with the faces. So we're going to measure our faces and of the drawers and find out what size drawers and how many we can fit in each side. So let's figure that out right now. Okay, so this is our cabinet. Right here is the top front corner of our cabinet. And what I've done is just taken a piece of scrap wood and laid it against there, because there's going to be a cabinet top on here that's going to be 3/4 inch plywood. So what I did was I measured down 5.5 inches. That is the face of our drawer. Okay, so even though our drawer is going to set on a 1/2 inch piece of plywood, and then this is our drawer side that will sit on there, the drawer face is going to be a little taller to cover everything up. So this is our first one. So we lay down from the top, always from the top, because the bottom we have room to adjust. So we lay down. So the first one is right here, and I put a little V mark right here so that I know that's the bottom. Now what we need to do is we need to measure down from that mark there another 5.5 inches, and we want to add an extra 1/8 of an inch for clearance of the drawer, so this drawer doesn't hit this drawer, and this one, when it's pulled out, doesn't hit this one. So that makes it 5 5/8 inches we want to come down. So we're going to do that, and that we'll put a V there, so we know that's the bottom of that drawer. And from there we want to go another 5 5/8 inches, and we'll put a V there. So we have 1, 2, 3 smaller drawers, and now we want to make our larger drawers to go here. So the larger drawers, the faces of the larger drawers, are going to be out of 1x8s. So we want some drawers to put some bigger things in and some smaller things in. So the top 3 drawers will have smaller items, and the bottom 2 drawers will have the bigger items. So 1x8 are 7 1/4 inches, because once they're planed down and stuff, their finished size is 7 1/4. So what we want to do is we want to go from that mark there. We want to go 7 1/4. We want to add another 1/8, so we're going 7 3/8, and that will take us right here. That'll be the bottom of the other drawer, and we want to go again 7 3/8. That'll be the bottom of that drawer. That'll give us a little trim piece to put on the bottom down here. So we'll have 2 big drawers, 3 smaller drawers, and a trim piece along the bottom. And that trim piece is important because you don't want this drawer all the way down the bottom where when you open it, it can rub on your floor. So this way the drawer will be able to pull out, and they'll have plenty of clearance down here. Okay, so now that we've laid out this side, we have to match this with the other cabinet face, because our dados have to match when they come across. So we're going to transfer these marks right here to the other cabinet vertical piece paneling. Okay, and then we can start cutting in our dados. Okay, what I've done here is I've come up from that mark with the V. We know that's the bottom of our runner on the drawer, which is going to be the bottom of our drawer as well, and I've come up 5/8 of an inch, because the plywood's a 1/2 inch. I want to have a little bit of clearance, so that, and there's the end, have a little bit of clearance so when we cut the grooves, the plywood can slide in easily, but when we get to the end of our drawer, it doesn't want to bow down very much. So that's our next step, and now we're going to transfer those marks over to the other sheet, and then we're going to cut our dados. So in order to get these dados to line up on each side and be a mirrored image, what I did was I laid the other cabinet on top of the one I had laid out, leaving a little space so I could see the marks. Now I'll transfer those marks from the bottom cabinet panel to the top cabinet panel, and then we can transfer them across directly. It's a whole lot more accurate than trying to measure them. Now you should be able to see I've transferred the marks from the bottom to the top, and now I know they'll be correct. I'll double check the other side, and then I will transfer them across, bringing the measurements up from the bottom over there the same distance, and then drawing lines across, and I'll show you that step right now. So what I want to do to get this correct, even though this is facing, I want to measure down here again just to check, and I've got 4 3/4 inches. So what I want to do is take and transfer that over to here, 4 3/4 inches, put a mark, and that's going to be my bottom. Okay, and now I can measure down here 10 3/8, and transfer that over, and just continue on down. Now that I've taken this mark and transferred the same distance from here to the bottom, from there to the bottom over, I can take a straight edge and line them up, take my pencil mark and transfer that right across. Okay, if you remember me telling you at the beginning of the video series about double checking your measurements, measure twice, cut once, here's an example of a mistake I found by double checking. If you notice over there, I scribbled a line out, comes all the way across here. I was off by about ½ inch there. So by double checking, I caught that. That would have been pretty ugly if I went ahead and cut that dado without double checking them. So always double check your measurements. It'll really save you in the long run. Now, after everything is laid out, the next thing you want to do is you want to set the depth on your circular saw. You can easily do this with a router much faster, but I realize not everybody has a router, so I'm going to show you how to do it old school. And basically make sure that the battery is out of the circular saw, and that way you'll be safe, or the saw is unplugged. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take and you're going to set this to the highest tooth that's in the middle there to 3/8 of an inch, which is right there. And now you take this and you just tighten it up. And now that saw is only sticking down 3/8 of an inch below the faceplate here. So now when you cut those lines, in between those lines, what will happen is you will only go halfway through the plywood, which is what you want. That'll give us the groove that we need. So before we start cutting dados in our good pieces, we want to double check that our depth is set correctly, and this might be helpful to you to take a test run on this. I'll show you how to do these dados and how to clean them up in just a couple of seconds. Basically, I don't have any lines on here, so I'm just going to freehand this because I'm just trying to give you an idea of actually how to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to make two cuts. The cut you're going to want to first make when you do it on the finished piece is to cut the inside and just leave the line, and then cut on this inside and just leave that line. Then you'll make a bunch of series of passes through there and clean up the rest with a chisel. Let me show you how to do that. So what we're left with is a series of grooves cut in here like this. This would be our line we would leave there and leave there, and we have these pieces in here which come out pretty easy. Let me show you how to. You can just break them off like this to get started. And then I have a ½ inch chisel here, pretty cheap. This is a Harbor Freight one, a couple of dollars. You just break those off like that, move them out of the way, and then you just clean up these bottoms. Always make sure your bevel is down. That way it's going to want to lift rather than dig in. And you'll be able to clean these up pretty easily. Flip them around. There you go. Nice groove. Nice dado. 5/8 of an inch. Your plywood will slide easily back and forth in there. So now that we've done a test piece and we found out that it's the right depth for what we want, we're going to work on one of our finished pieces. I'm going to cut the first dado here now. Remember to stay on the inside of the line towards the center of your groove. sure you take your time. That's the main thing. You'll get a nice straight line if you just take your time. Don't rush it. Let's finish the other ones, and then I'll chisel them out, and we'll finish all these up. We'll be ready for assembly, and then I'll show you exactly how to put everything together. Okay, once you make your side cuts, and then you make your center cuts to take out your waste material, all you have to do is take this inexpensive chisel or whatever you have on hand and just turn it sideways like this. And all that will do is be to break those off the bottom for you. Like that. Do the other side. And they will lift right out. Now it's just a matter of cleaning the bottom. Make sure you put the bevel down, okay? Not this way, because it'll have a tendency to dig in. But if you put it this way, it'll just skim along the bottom and have a tendency to lift. And just clean up whatever is left there. A 1/2-inch chisel fits perfectly in here, and this is going to simulate what your drawers are going to run like. There you go. That's what a finished dado looks like. Nice and straight, nice and clean. With the long side of the module cabinet down, this is the one with the drawers. We'll be assembling this one first. It doesn't really matter which one you put together. They're going to go together very similar, very much alike. So with this one down, what we're going to do is we're going to put this top piece on. Now this top piece doesn't set on top as such. It actually sets inside like that, and we want to keep our screw holes to the top. Remember, anything above eye level we want to put our screws up. Anything below eye level we want to put them down. So this way we just line up the edges like this, and we'll run these screws in from the top side. Now with a bigger piece like this, it's always easiest, I find, to start on one end and then work the piece over one way or the other to make sure it's flush with the top. The reason we're putting this top piece and these shelves inside the cabinet rather than setting them on top is so that the plywood edge isn't shown from the sides. It gives a nice look. And you don't have to worry about the front because we're going to be putting a trim piece on that later. So now with that one on, we have to figure out how far down we want to put our next shelf for our tote. Now the tote I'm using is a Home Depot tote. It's 27 gallons. It measures about 15.5 inches to the highest spot, which is right here. So I want a little more clearance when I'm putting my shelves in and out. I don't want, make them too tight. So we're going to come down from the bottom of the shelf to the top of the next one, 18 inches, and that should give us plenty of room, especially once we put our trim on. So you want to measure 18 from the bottom of the shelf to the top of the next, and I've already done that. So now it's just a matter of fastening our other shelf. Now, if you measure up from the bottom, I'm 6 foot, so my eyes are about 5.5, and that's right about what that is. So I'm going to put these screws on the bottom, and that way they'll be hidden from sight. Making sure the edges here are flush, and I'm on the line. I'm going to start my first screw. Moving it over so it's on the line again. And like I said, I start from one side, move along, and adjust it as needed. And the other two are on the line, so I'll just finish these up. One more screw. Then we'll measure down for our next shelf. Okay. So again, we want to stay at 18 inches. So we'll do that again. From the bottom to the top, 18. And 18. We just take a straight edge, draw a line across, take our next shelf, put it there, and repeat. That's going to give us a small spot right here, because we're going to have another shelf right here where our drawer ends. That'll give us a nice little spot to put gloves or whatever else we'd like in here. Now, this is where our other drawer is going to set. So we need to figure out the height we're going to need for this shorter shelf in here. We're going to measure off the bottom of this slide. This is the bottom of the cabinet, so the bottom of this slide, because that's going to be the bottom of the drawer. And also the bottom of the face of the drawer, which will be over there. So that we know that that face is 5.5 inches. So we're going to place the tape against there, measure 5.5 inches. Transfer that over here, 5.5 inches. Now we'll draw a line again. We'll add that final shelf. You might want to just set this shelf about a 1/16 closer to that drawer, just so that edge is, that finish edge of the plywood is hidden. But it's not that critical. Okay, now we'll add that final shelf. So with that side fastened, now all we have to do is add the other side and screw that on. You may be asking yourself why I'm sliding this other side underneath this one, and I'll show you in a second. What I want to do, so I want to avoid measuring as much as possible. So what I'm going to do is utilize these shelves as my template for marking. And make the top flush. Check the bottom, which is flush. All the dados line up. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my mark here on the top of each of these, wherever each of these shelves intersect. And so all I have to do, I use the square because it extends down a little bit, gives me a little more accuracy than just an eye. I put a little X where these are so I know what side to go on. Now, to measure the other side, I just shift everything over, line up the top and the bottom, keeping things as parallel as possible. With the shelves laid out on the side underneath, now all I have to do is flip this over and line up those marks. Now with everything parallel, I'll start at the top and on one side move my way along, and I'll do that for each shelf. But because I have mark on each end, what I'm going to do is do a screw on each end and fill the middles in as I go along. And that way they'll stay lined up on the marks. So let's start with the top one. With the first top shelf fastened, I want to put our mounting bracket and stiffener in, and that's going to go right here at the top. I'll fasten it first to the top, and then I'll fasten it to the sides, and that'll pull everything into place, making things nice and square. Again, starting on one corner, working my way down. These cabinets are, as they stand right now, 23 7/8 or 23 3/4 thereabouts. And then we're going to have a little piece of trim on there. It's going to be another 3/4 of an inch. So they're going to stand about 24.5 inches deep. The totes I have here measure about 28.5. So these totes are actually going to stick out a little bit on the cabinet, which is fine for me. I don't mind that. But if it's a concern for you, you can either make your cabinets wider and turn your totes sideways, or you can make your cabinets deeper. But if you do that, you're going to miss out on being able to utilize 2 cuts of plywood out of 1 sheet. You're going to have to utilize that other cut somehow, and it's going to cost you more money. But it's up to you. So we have our finished piece to put on below our drawers right here. And then I'll probably add one more stiffener piece back here just to keep our cabinet drawers aligned. Now once this is ripped, what I'm going to do to mount this is I'm going to turn it so the pocket holes are facing inside, and these mounting holes that would normally go into the top of a shelf or the top of the cabinet to hold everything in place are facing down. Okay? So what I want to do is I want to flip this over, face them down, and put them in this way. Make it flush with the bottom. Run a couple of screws through, and then I know that this is going to be stay level and even. So with that last screw in, this cabinet now is ready for stain. The next cabinet we have to build is going to go together in much the same way, so I'm not going to film that for you. That one is much easier to put together. It only has a top and 2 shelves. And I'll give you the layout dimensions for that one as well. That takes care of our part 3 video in this series. And I really encourage you, if you like our content, to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you're up to date on all the videos that we put out as soon as they come out. And if you like this content, please share it with a friend as well. I'm sure other people can benefit from this video. So again, thanks guys for watching, And God bless you, and I'll see you in the next video.